for the risk takers. The weekend kings of speed. The challenge is Daytona. The challenge is time. The challenge is impossible to describe. The men of amateur racing, they push themselves to the limit. They stretch their lives to the breaking point in order to live more fully. They drive the ragged edge. Datsun, maker of the Datsun 240Z, presents the American Road Race of Champions. See one of our more than 600 Datsun dealers. Discover the new world of Datsun. A unique weekend of speed unfolds in Daytona Beach, Florida. This is the American Road Race of Champions. 377 superb drivers compete for national honors in 16 half-hour showdowns. They are 1969's top drivers from the Sports Car Club of America's 7 divisions. All have something in common, an infectious bug called road racing.
And I don't think I could find any greater challenge as an individual than to drive this race car and compete against both the risk involved in racing and the competition from the other drivers.
Well, there are a lot of things about racing that put us in it. Probably takes more coordination of mind and body than any other sport. There's footwork, there's handwork, there's mind work. It all comes quick and fast.
You can't really think of what might happen if something happened, but that's not really pleasing, I don't think. Especially at Daytona, it's so damn fast.
I don't think there's any question about it. Only here for one reason, and that's to win.
Well, where else can you drive, safely at a competitive speed anymore? I like to drive fast, and it's a competition, as you can picture. So there's not much else left, really. A little guy like me can do. I can't play football,
Why do people climb mountains? Why do people take up any challenge? There's a challenge, and there's a certain satisfaction in a challenge that's met and done well that you just can't put a monetary or physical value on. There's certain indefinable hits in this world, and I think racing's one of them.
One race was enough to lure Dr. Wilbert Pickett, a Daytona Beach physician, into the flat-out world of racing.
I first became interested in racing when I went to Sebring in 1961. That was the first race that I had seen. I liked the color, the atmosphere, the noise, the smell, the excitement, the human drama, the competition, everything about it I liked, and I felt that this is something I wanted to do someday.
At the wheel of his Red Alpha 36, Dr. Pickett fought for national honors in the SCCA's tough G production category. Only 3 laps into the race, and it became a classic 4-man duel for the lead between Pickett, fellow Alpha pilots Paul Spruill, 96, Dick Jenkins, 74, and a persistent Triumph Spitfire driven by Gordon Smiley. Shadowed by Smiley's golden Spitfire, the Alphas toyed with the lead. Spruill finally shook loose on the last lap, gunning past Pickett at 145 miles per hour and into victory lane.
But he's now trying to get by, but he can't make it.
Meanwhile, the battle for second place, won by Pickett, spilled over into the pit area.
Nine to five of life it seems makes every man a slave in a world that's so full of colors. We live our lives in shades of gray. If I'm to ever gain control, be the master of my soul, I'll grasp life with both my hands, and then I'll risk it all. Once you've seen beyond the ragged edge, you're living.
Now the Big Iron challenged Daytona as the Corvettes and Cobras of A production went into action. Tony DiLorenzo, a pre-race favorite, described his 650 horsepower ride.
The horsepower is the help, of course. The banking, it takes a lot of horsepower to pull good speed through the banking. So a car like ours has no trouble. In fact, it'll run as fast as a stock car if we use the whole oval. A hindrance, of course, is the weight. Our car is a very heavy car. It weighs, almost 2,800 pounds. So it's extremely difficult to handle in corners and on braking. Braking is probably one of the tougher items as far as a Corvette driver is concerned. Our brakes, if we drive our brakes hard enough, we can actually keep them on a constant point of fade. If it makes us feel good, in other words, if we can keep them just on the ragged edge of fading, that means we're driving the car right to the limit.
DiLorenzo, number 1, and Michigan teammate Jerry Thompson at number 7 took an early lead, but were split up by the hard-charging Pennsylvania bad boy, Don Yenko. Blasting off to catch Thompson, Yenko 91 pushed his Corvette to the ragged edge. And then plowed off the course in a shower of course markers and loose bodywork. Yenko was out of contention as a pack scrambled through a debris-littered course. Thompson opened his lead over the battered Yenko as teammate DiLorenzo was slowed by tire problems. This is Daytona at speed, at 190 miles per hour in Jerry Thompson's Corvette, climbing onto the 31-degree banks. Drivers describe it as being like a giant thumb, pushing them down into the surface of the track with such force that they imagine the car will belly down onto the asphalt. They claim no specific memories of this experience. It is just too fast and too strong. big iron of A production attacks Daytona, straightening out curves with sheer power, blasting seconds from the high banks. A production roared into the final laps, with Jerry Thompson cruising the 3 1/10 mile course at an average speed of well over 100 miles per hour. The Daytona infield continued to take its toll. Thompson, 31, the project engineer for General Motors, added his name to our growing list of national champions. The winner's average speed, 106 miles per hour. His rank for 1969, number 1.
Come on around, Jerry. I can tell what's going on. I can see different people. Put in your car.
Just because a 96 horsepower overhead cam engine makes our Datsun four-door sedan the most powerful car in its class. And just because our Datsun four-door sedan has independent four-wheel suspension for road-hugging stability. And just because our Datsun four-door sedan has front disc brakes for faster, safer stopping, we can't really call it our race car. But we can say the Datsun four-door sedan gives you more sophisticated automotive engineering features than any other car in the $2,000 price range. Just because it does. That's why you should drive a Datsun, then decide. It's a sound move.
Daytona, Florida, the American road race of champions, the tightest racing in the world, a weekend of overlapping sensory impressions. A blending of the ultra-modern and the more traditional forms of beauty. A weekend of 1,000 surprises, with Lady Luck playing a key role in virtually all 16 races. This was an Olympics devoted to the complex relationship between man and his sophisticated invention, the machine. D production driver Bob Sharp advocates togetherness.
You try to do it as though it's one piece, man and machine, where you really have a feel of the car, where your left hip is a part of the left rear suspension, your right hip's a part of the right rear suspension. You just really try to work together and feel the car and give it the gas and the braking and cornering forces and everything in a very balanced nature. I think that's the big thing, that the driver and the car should work together in one flowing motion if you can. A driver to a musician would be very similar in that both would equate very much with their machine. The musician is constantly aware of what his instrument's doing and the tonal qualities that are coming out, and the driver, he's a part of the machine and would be constantly aware of the tones coming from the engine. A lot of people believe that a race driver is all nervous and keyed up and everything else before a race, but really, I think you're in an acute state of anticipation of all of the things of racing. You're not nervous and twitchy and shaking or that kind of thing, but you sort of key your senses up to be very quick in reaction time and reading all of the instruments and anticipating the cornering, the braking, and all of that.
Now D production was ready for action.
It's a thrill. It's something you're doing yourself. No one's helping you once you're out there, and it's up to you. And you can't lie to yourself. You know whether you did well, you know whether you didn't do well, regardless of what anybody else says. It's just there.
When I first started racing 11 years ago, if something would happen to the car and then lose, I'd just throw my helmet and kick the car and walk away. Now if something happens to it, there's really not much you can do about it. The race is over for you, and you just have to take it in your stride.
Led by the red, white, and blue Datsuns of pole sitters Frank Moniz and John Morton, the pack roared into the first lap. Moniz lost it in turn one as the field smoked by. Storming up from fifth position on the grid, Jack Scoville grabbed an early lead, with Morton climbing into his truck as they headed onto the back straight. Morton wound it tight on the banks and took the lead. More trouble for the D production pole sitters as Scoville vaulted past a faltering Morton for the last time. Morton went into the pits as Scoville stretched it out for a 5-second pass. With Brian Furstenau's triumph in second, Dan Parkinson in third, and Bob Sharp in fourth. Averaging over 95 miles an hour, Scoville headed for a trophy as Parkinson outbraked Furstenau's hot triumph into turn one and climbed into second place. Scoville opened his lead to 8 seconds at the flag. What a battle for second. It's Parkinson by a fender. Scoville, a 17-year racing veteran from Oregon, led Datsun to a sweep of 4 out of the first 5 places.
The car worked every bit as good as we expected it to. A couple of the competitors that we expected to have a very bad time with dropped out quite early in the race. And I think it would have been a very exciting race had they stayed in there.
The 6th annual Speed King Coronation, the American Road Race of Champions, the most varied collection of piston-driven sculpture in the world, tortured precious seconds from Daytona.